What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of We Burn Blue. This is the Keep Sell Loan, or is that what we're calling it? Are we calling it Keep Sell Loan? I know that's trademarked by other podcasts out there, but this is where we cover the midfield. We've already done our end season review and a view on the goalkeepers and defense. So if you haven't heard those, definitely hear those before you come to this and subscribe and follow us and do all that. But how you feeling, Sharon? We'll look at the midfield today. I know you're pretty G'd up for this one.
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna lie. I pretty much went into no life mode, even though I definitely have other demands on the table. And especially after our defense pod, I just went deep, and I was like, you know what? How would I set up this squad? So yeah, very excited to go through the midfield today. But I know for a fact that there were a couple of caveats or extra points you wanted to touch on with the defense before we move on, right?
Yeah, dude. I think I realized, while editing again, that we probably didn't go as deep into the keepers as we should have, specifically the keeping, because we spent a lot of time on the defense, and I just felt like, okay, um, I know my claim was I want to keep Sanchez, and I know that he cost us at points during the season, especially like with the United game, and I feel like we didn't do enough to talk about those errors, right? So Sanchez definitely prone to a bunch of errors, but I still don't think that changes my view on him. I think it's worth having him around, and integrating Penders and going for that third choice keeper. I mean that elite keeper, sorry, which makes Sanchez a third choice keeper. And Jorgensen, man, like the errors versus PSG, like that game defined it for me. So yeah, I just think I don't want him around for sure. So that doesn't change. I just felt like, okay, I think we did not address that enough, and it was worth pointing out that yes, they're both error prone, but even so, I think Sanchez could stay for me. Yeah.
I mean, earlier on, you were saying that, well, I say earlier on in the previous pod, you did say that picking Jorgensen for the PSG game was basically where it all went downhill, right? Even though, maybe you get knocked out by PSG anyway, but the rest of the season is still salvageable. But you think that that was the kind of the stamp on Rafinha's kind of exit from the club, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that was a moment for me. Like that was when Rosinia sealed his fate at Chelsea, because that was an unforgivable decision. And I'll maintain it today. I think two things I'm clear about last season, right? Rosinia's decision to play Jorgensen cost him his career at Chelsea. And um, the decision to appoint Rosinia in the first place is what led us even further, like led us there. So yeah, they both center on Rosinia. But anyway, that's that. I mean.
Okay, dude. So just give us a quick summary on your keep loan sell for the goalkeepers.
Okay, yeah. So Jorgensen goes, Bender stays, Sanchez stays. And if we get an elite keeper, Sanchez stays as a backup. Otherwise, it's between Benders and Sanchez for the number one. That's the way I see it right now.
Okay, so I also have done some thinking since our last pod. Started to take this a bit more seriously as if it was my club. Um, I don't think I still don't think he's good enough. But as you pointed out to me, rightfully so, you can't let go of both keepers. And out of the two, you'd probably choose Sanchez to be a backup because at least he's better than Jorgensen at shot stopping, supposedly. Neither of them are great, but as a backup, then you can put Sanchez on the bench as somebody to also keep up some competition. But in my mind, we still go out and we have to get a new first choice keeper. And I'm looking at somebody like Mike Manuel, or I don't even know if we can get Diogo Costa for Porto. But these two guys are leaders, right? Aside from being like, Costa is like a great shot, penalty facer, and both of them are great shot stoppers, if nothing else. So yeah, I think we absolutely have to upgrade. And I've taken that kind of logic, right? And I've applied it to the defense. So I think we definitely have to try and offload Fofana, Badiashile, Tosin, and Sar. Now, I think it has to be sales for Fofana, Badiashile, and Tosin. Sar, like we mentioned in the last pod, he's still pretty young, right? And you know what? Just because our first batch of youngsters all turned out like shit, or most of them did, right? It doesn't mean that he is going to be like that. But he should go out on loan and actually get a full season's worth of football. He can go and do that at Strasbourg, right? No problems there. But what that does mean, and this is what I realized, right? If we do that, if we move on these four centre backs, what happens if Colwill gets injured? That's the key thing, right? Because again, he finished the season well. He's walked back into the first team, rightfully so. And now he's gone on a break and we started all over again, right? So in my mind, Reece James is a great right centre-back option. Hato and Cucurella, if he stays, could be really good left centre-back options, right? I think Chalobah can probably cover at right centre-back and left centre-back if needs be. But we really suffer when our central centre-back is not available. So we need to bring in, I think we actually need to bring in a starting quality centre-back who can ideally fill in at central centre-back. And I guess, I mean, if I'm asking for too much, then tell me, but in all three positions. But I would say, like, hey, if you want to switch to a back four, Colwill plays left centre-back. So the bias would be you bring in a new first choice or a starting quality centre-back who can primarily play central centre-back or right centre-back very, very well. And then screw it, in the games where you need to rest Hato, Colwill, and James, you play Trev on the left centre-back role. Because in those games, we're talking like those should be winnable games without these players that I've mentioned, right? Those are resting games for these players. And we don't actually have as long a season, right? Anyway, no Europe means you remove 15 games or like 10 games, whatever it is. So that's where I got to with the defense. I think in the defense part of it is the memory escapes me now. I think I said we should get rid of those four and we can manage with the rest, or maybe there was a spot for Fofana. But I'm quite categorical now that it's the same thing with Sanchez for me. Maybe he's good enough at backup, but considering the money situation, I would keep Sanchez and just try and invest money into a new first choice keeper rather than buying two new keepers. For me, Penders goes out on loan. And then in the centre back, it's the same thing. Fofana might be a good enough backup, but I think we need to cash in there and bring in somebody who we could trust because, yeah, he's demonstrated that he's enough of a liability to let us down.
Exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. I think I'm with you there. So, I think we're pretty aligned. I mean, in the sense of like, as much as this is us building our own teams, there seems to be a consensus on who needs to go. And I've seen a couple of other thoughts on this, and it's very similar. I think a lot of people want Tosin, Badiashile, Fofana out for sure. Disasi is probably going to come back from his loan, but I think he's also going to, get out of the way as well. So yeah, another one he forgot,
the forgotten man, right?
The forgotten man. Yeah, no, but at the risk of not making this extending this further, I think we've done a whole hour on this. Let's get into the midfield, right? So, obviously, I think the key person to talk about from a mid perspective is the guy whose future is the most out for speculation right now, Enzo Fernandez. I think over the season, he had 20 goal assist contributions across all competitions, but also ranked really high for like fouls and yellows. So mixed I wouldn't say mixed bag. You could definitely see the value he's bringing you on the pitch as a leader, and in terms of coming up in key moments. What's your view on Enzo Fernandez? And do you think that if there is a suitable offer for him, it's time to cash in, or do you think that we need to make him stay regardless?
Honestly, I'm conflicted on Enzo, but I feel like there, what you've mentioned in terms of his trade-offs there was it was exhibited across the pitch. I mean, you're talking about 10 yellows for the season. I think this is a prem stat for 10 yellows. I mean, that's ridiculous, man. That's absolutely ridiculous. But it's bad everywhere across the pitch. The unfortunate thing is he's a leader in the team. He's actually vice captain, right? So if he's behaving petulantly, it's going to transcend. So poor discipline, like I mentioned in the previous pod, maturity, but also fatigue, I think, are two very critical factors. I'm not saying that this team was tired alone, and that's why there was yellows. You can still manage yourself, right? But injuries also contributes to fatigue, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in general, we need stability. We need depth, like trustworthy depth, because literally this is the engine room of the pitch, right? If you're not able to rotate, and that's exactly what we saw with Enzo playing 35 games in the Prem, 35 starts, right? And 32 starts from Caicedo. It's obviously going to take its toll, right? Their quality is going to drop off. I tip my hat to Enzo, who maintained, I would say, a reasonable level of quality. Like we're used to better goal scoring midfielder performances in this, of course. But considering the context of the season, um, I keep him. I keep him. Like you say, unless we're talking like, upwards of 120 M, that's when you're thinking, hey, like maybe we can try and invest some of this money in the right way for a change, right? But we're talking about a lot of money here. I'm not actually sure who's got that in the bank. In terms of where I would play him next season, I think he's not athletic enough to be in our midfield. And that's before Xabi Alonso comes in and, asks us to do some really intense gegenpressing, right, for most of our
But
games.
I wanna ask you something here, right? You talked about his yellows, right? So he had 10 yellows. Caicedo had 11 yellows and a red. This is Prem, of course, right? Um, do you think that's down to them as individuals and their lack of discipline, or is it the systems that we were setting up in under both Maresca and Rosinha, where our midfield was exposed? These guys had to do a lot of last minute tackles. And maybe in the case of Enzo, it was that his defensive work rate was slower. He's obviously slow on the ball. We know this, right? So maybe because he's slower, he's making a few more rash fouls. But with Caicedo, it's also the fact that he's covering so much. Is it that, or is it, in personal indiscipline?
I mean, I'm not going to immediately answer your question. First thing is Enzo has work rate. Like I think he puts himself about the pitch. The problem is he's not fast. So,
Yeah.
so he's automatically beaten, right? It's not actually, it's not hard to bypass his press unless he's already kind of tight marking the player who's about to receive the ball. In which case, I actually back Enzo because he's got great balance and he's got a tackle on him as well. If in terms of your question, it's always a combination, man. Like if our players had a full preseason, they came into the season well rested, and we had our full depth to play with, right? I actually think we manage the temperament better and therefore the discipline. And then you can also ask players to do more and be more aggressive in your tactics, right? So I think, when Caicedo probably had more legs in him, more engine in him, he was probably covering the same amount of ground, right? He was probably doing a lot of chasing, but he was managing it well. I think we're seeing towards the back end of this huge run of games that we've had since the start of last season, right? That it's taken its toll. So yeah, just briefly, that's why I say I actually think, like, look, Enzo's quality. He's still a leader in the team. He's got the ambition that this team needs. He definitely does not have, let's say, the professionalism that Reece James has, because he's spoken out against the club already and the project. But I can't blame him too much for that. I still think he has the quality to play in this team and to be a critical player for Alonso. I just don't think it's in central midfield. I think it's in attacking midfield. I mean, I know we're probably going to go into more depth into Alonso's style later, but where does he, at least does he feature next season? I mean, for you, do you keep it?
Man, look, if this entire thing hadn't happened, it's an easy keep for me. I think there's no doubt about his quality. My only concern, and I think I said this is about Cucurella as well, is that if a player shows that they're not content, or they're not 100% here, I would rather have somebody who's 100% here than somebody who's not. And that's the only thing for me, right? There's obviously the interviews he made. I mean, the interviews he did last season at whatever point that was, and then there's his agent saying, "Oh, Chelsea are not taking the negotiations forward in a way that we want or whatever." So if there is some doubt over whether he wants to, be there in his mind, then he should go. If he's clear that he wants to be at Chelsea, 100%, man. Like, I would keep him. I wouldn't cash in on that 120, even if he got 120 million, which again, like you said, I don't know who has that kind of money, but I feel like we'd be better off in the long run having him than not. But if the other side to consider is, of course, the finances, right? If an offer is coming in that's even 80 million plus, are they going to be able to say no? Like, we consider him to be integral and we have to keep him no matter what. I don't know. The state of finances is such that we do need the money, right? But if that wasn't a condition, he's an easy keep for me. I think there's no question about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, like actually, that's a good perspective, because, like you mentioned, we don't want players at this club who are going to throw their toys out of the pram every time something gets a little bit too difficult, right? And I know this season for him would have been extremely tough, but still, right? You had other professionals who were just getting on with the game, right? And I'm referring to somebody like Caicedo, who played through great form and then shit form, right? But he played. He didn't pop off in the media. And okay, fine. Again, his disciplinary record was not great, but this is where I think it gets interesting, right? Like, I know I said I would keep Enzo, but we have to prepare for the potential departure, right, of Enzo. And I actually think it's an opportunity to kind of let Caicedo open up his game, because he's definitely more than just a ball winner. And we've seen that, man. Like, the guy has clutch moments in defense, but also going forward, he's played quite a few good through passes, right? So he's got an eye for it. And I mean, like, long shot against Liverpool, was it, right? And I think that was with his left as well. He also he's a dynamic midfielder like Enzo, right? But he's athletic at the same time. So I think if Enzo goes, it's not, let's say, the worst thing, because I think you can probably tell Santos to kind of limit his game, or at worst case scenario, you bring in a six, and then you say, "Hey, Caicedo, it's your time to shine. You run the game." And by the way, that's me saying that, like, Caicedo's, like, definitely a keep. His
Yeah.
defensive
Yeah. I think.
numbers are absolutely elite, and I think he's being shackled. I think he will do wonders in a gegenpress, especially if he's allowed to press in the opposition half.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, I was gonna say, so you're a sell on Enzo. I'm a keep on Enzo, and I think Caicedo is a unanimous keep. I don't think there's any discussion. Like you said, his numbers are insane. He did get 3 goals in the league. He also got a goal in the Champions League, and yeah, just a consistent performer. I mean, even Caicedo on a bad day is still giving you a solid 7, right? So, you can't afford to drop those sort of players. Though I will say that I feel towards the end of the season as well, there was a lot of frustration. There were a lot of silly tackles and silly moments, which I don't usually associate with him. I feel like he peaked between the Club World Cup and the like towards the end of Maresca, and then I think there was fatigue creeping in as well. So I would like to see that addressed going forward. Definitely.
So I did bring up another midfielder there. Andre Santos, he probably didn't get enough or as much time as he would have hoped. And I think I would say that as well. I wanted to see him a lot more. But what did you make of his season, and do we see him next season?
I think that was an understatement. You didn't just want to see him a lot more. You had him playing more than Enzo as your prediction that last season. um, no, but I think Santos showed his quality both under Maresca and under Rosina. Under Rosina, you saw more of his defensive ability as well to drop into that back three. I think easy player that we should keep around. We should develop. We should grow because, like you said, in the event of Enzo leaving, which, as much as I want him to stay, if I'm honest, looks more and more likely, right? Santos, Caicedo, are people who know our system. Of course, I mean, our system, granted, the system's going to change, but they at least have been around at the club. They're not a completely new face. And if you bring in that quality addition, then you're fine. But I think that the priorities are going to be center back and probably a center forward. But of course, we'll cover the forwards in our next one because there's a lot happening there as well. But yeah, I think Santos is for me again easy keep because at least he's been available, right? And that I think brings up our next person, Mr. Unavailable. Like he personifies this, right? Labia. Like I don't know how many appearances he has had across all his time. I think he's now clocked 25 appearances in what, 3 years? Has it been now? Or was
Yeah,
it
and
4? Was it?
I still don't, I don't think he's finished a 90 minutes, right? I don't think he's
Yeah, no.
completed a 90-minute game.
He had 12 appearances in the Premier League. 3 were starts, 382 minutes. He didn't feature in the Champions League at all. And I don't have his club performances there. No goals, no assists, 48% duel percentage, 10 tackles, 1. Overall, just really, really underwhelming for all the hype that surrounded him. The fact that we stuck it to Liverpool when we got him as well. That was the whole narrative. If I remember, it was when we were going with Caicedo and we got Caicedo and Lavia in the same window, wasn't it? While we jumped Liverpool to both of them. So it just feels like that was one of those things where the club were like, the owners at least were like, no, we have to have him because Liverpool want him, and we've not really seen his potential. So all that to say for me, and Lavia's an easy sell, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think Lavia's got to go. That might actually help us financially in terms of keeping Enzo. Of course, like you mentioned, it's not up to us. It's up to Enzo. If he wants to go, then we should just let him go. But my concern is, Enzo's goals and assists, right? I'm saying, okay, if he goes, I think Caicedo can definitely chip in. But somebody who won't contribute is Lavia. But he doesn't really contribute defensively either. Like he still needs a defensive midfielder behind him or next to him. So he's definitely like receive the ball, pass it on kind of midfielder, right? And I'm finding that there's a key profile missing in this midfield, which we've definitely felt the brunt of it, especially at set pieces, right? But I mean, John Obi Mikel, right, or Nemanja Matic, these guys they kept their game very simple. They were able to slow things down in the game when they needed to hold up the ball because they use their size, they use their intelligence and positioning to defend rather than being a Kante or a Caicedo who are like hunting the ball. That's we don't have that. And
Yeah,
you
we
look
don't.
at Santos, you look at Caicedo, Esugo. They're kind of similar profiles, right? Especially defensively. But like even you add Lavia to that and Enzo, I'm not sure if any of them are actually above 6'1", 6'2", right?
Yeah.
So
It-
and they all have that like kind of they're decently strong, but they're not like bullies. I'm not going to say like any one of them is charging somebody off, like off the ball. Maybe Caicedo, but he's just a superb tackler. Um, so yeah, I think actually the profiles in midfield, especially physically, they're quite similar. So the Lavia thing for me is an opportunity to say, hey, thanks for your time, but no thank you. We don't need it anymore. And then you bring in somebody to as like a defensive midfield, like proper, so that you can release your Caicedos, you can release your Santoses. Esugo for me, I just want like both Lavia and Esugo. I'm not going to comment too much on the football they played because they barely played any. Um, I think Esugo has a future at the club, um, but this coming season he needs to go out on loan. I agree with the Lavia sale. I agree with Santos keep. Um, it's just we need something different, some a little bit more gravitas in the middle of the pitch, and of
yeah.
course height and leadership. I mean, we've been banging those drums all season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Matic is a great example of that. Like we came back and, you could instantly see the value he brought to that midfield down. The Spider, I think that was his
But
nickname. Right?
dude, you know what I liked about Matic, right? Is that when he played next to Fabregas, it was like, okay, he knows his job. Sometimes he would anchor in front of the defense, or depending on game state, you would see him chase around the pitch using his long strides and try to close players down. And then when he was playing next to Kante, it was like, oh, okay, I can kind of free my game a little bit more, move about the pitch a little bit more, and try and dictate the game. And Kante is doing more of the box to box, doing more of the hassling, the harrying, right? It's basically like we didn't have to compromise, whichever combination we had on the pitch, right? Of course, Fabregas Kante definitely struggled for height, and I think that was around the time we started to fool around a bit with Bakayoko, if you remember. And I think in more recent times, we tried to kind of replace that profile with Zakaria, right? I think we had him on loan for half a season or a season.
We bought him, bro.
And
Zakaria was a purchase, if I'm not wrong.
man, okay. I mean, at this point, I can't keep track. But I feel like since then, and it's not like he played that much, we haven't had a proper number six. And I think that's what people mean when they say a proper number six. There needs to be a bit of stature, a bit of height, and a little bit of game know-how without necessarily being like, somebody who chases down the ball necessarily or has like an amazing passing range, right? It's more about somebody who just makes the right decisions, can hold up play, and make sure the game goes the way we want it to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think that's definitely a profile that we're missing, and maybe we're able to do this. I think a player that I think does this really well, and in recent times, and I've seen off the top of my head, he did it versus us, and was also present in the Champions League final. Fabian Ruiz, I think I rate that guy. I mean, I think I've rated him since his Atletico days, and I also see him play for Spain. And obviously, I don't think we can go out and get a Fabian Ruiz, but I think he's the kind of player that we definitely miss. They're able to clean up in the midfield. They also contribute going forward as well. So definitely, yeah, I think that's a profile we miss. But I think so. We've covered Enzo, Caicedo, Santos, Lavia, Isugo. I agree with you. I think he needs to go on loan. Um, and then there's a one man who's classified as a midfielder. Is probably the least midfield type player we have, but he's on this list per classification. So we got to cover Cole Palmer, man. And on Cole, what's your take? I'll let you go first with this one.
I think we should just sell him, man. Cut our losses. No, I think we'd be stupid to do that, of course. But yeah, man. I mean, I think if you're just like generally watching the Premier League, everybody knows this guy had a severe drop off in form. I think the Chelsea fans are a bit better informed in terms of the fact that he's been playing through injury, which I guess they still don't know how serious it is or whether surgery is required or whatever. But he's also, running off the back of just like everybody else. They're running off of just one majorly long season, which combined 2 seasons. And yeah, I think he's suffered with that, in terms of his fatigue, in terms of his creativity, right? If you're not fresh, if he's not in that relaxed state of mind, you can see at times he's rushing his thoughts, but his legs are not there to keep up. And at times he's just dwelling on the ball and he's half asleep. So it was a poor season. I mean, I think it's 11 goals and assists or 11 goal contributions. I think that's how people say it now. For the season in the Prem, we shouldn't like discount that. That's still some contribution, but he set the bar so high in that first season that it's a miraculous drop off. I I know I know, like you said, he's controversially a midfielder in this list because everybody seems to think that his best role is that starting in that number 10. I kind of see him sort of being at his best when he's named as a right winger, and he can go and play there for a bit as well, but he can also drift into number 10 or into half spaces. I remember when he was playing really well under Pochettino, he was also making runs in behind instead of Jackson. So they had this little good interplay, between them. And I think all of that creativity, all of that movement, and all of that, it's kind of just been stifled into, okay, you need to drop into this half space and sometimes drop deep and all that. And actually, we're just pushing him further away from goal. If he's being man marked, right? Why not just let him run in behind? Let him be tracked all the way back, and you create spaces that way in the middle of the pitch. So that because I'm saying he needs to be let loose and just let him roam, right? It does mean you can't play him as like an actual like attacking midfielder, like a 10. You have to kind of put him on one of your sides or play him as a false 9. Um, so that there's good defensive cover behind him, right? Like I would say like when Enzo plays 10, he does a fair, like I said, he puts in his defensive work. He's just slow, so he looks bad at it.
Yeah.
Obviously Palmer's a keep. I don't want to ramble on too much. Obviously Palmer's a keep for me. Still probably the best player at the club in terms of technical ability. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Alonso plays him.
Yeah. No, I think again, easy keep for me as well. But you can't discount the drop off. It's been significant. And I think it was very evident as well, where there were moments where he would have buried these if he was on form. Like there were clear cut moments where you think Palmer's going to score and he's gone and played it wide, skied it, and you can see his frustration as well. I think a lot of it though, in terms of how he kicks on in that regard, like I think him not having the World Cup, not being called up is great. I think Tuchel did us a favor, honestly, and I don't know if there was some sentimentality in which because of which he did that, but I think he's going to really benefit from the time off. He needs to just decompress, I feel. I don't know if they're going to have him have the surgery that they talked about him maybe needing. I don't know about that, but definitely time off will help him. And a lot of it comes down to, yes, how Alonso's going to set up. I think, like you said, he was dropping deep, trying to, make things happen. And the thing is that he did also do that under Pochettino. It's not that that wasn't something that was happening. There were times where he was taking control of the game, but I think he was just on form. So he took control and something actually happened. Recently, he's been trying to take control and hasn't been able to have anything happen. So, um, obviously, where he's going to play, what position he'll be in, who's going to be around him. I mean, you mentioned him making runs in behind Jackson, right? Jackson was at the club. Jackson's going to be back. There's maybe Jackson stays. I don't know. If that happens, could something spark there? What happens to Joao Pedro? There's too many fucking variables, man. But I think with Palmer, it's pretty clear that yes, he's an easy keep. And he is, like you said, our best player. It was really it was frustrating to see him so frustrated at times. And hopefully, he kicks on. So I think to recap for me, my keeps are Caicedo, Palmer, Santos for sure, sell Lavia, loan Sugo, and Enzo if he doesn't want to be there. I think yeah, sell him. That's the only reason I say sell him. Otherwise I would have kept him.
I mean, I have a bit of a cheeky question, right? You asked me the same thing about Enzo. If the right money comes in for Palmer, do you sell? Because you do have Esteval waiting in the quote unquote wings. You still have Quenda coming in, right, as well. So that adds another width option, right? You still have Neto on the books, and I don't think he was playing for Rosinha. I think Alonso comes in and changes his mentality, right? You still have. I'm not going to bring up Garnacho. I'm not going to do it. I won't do it. I'm not going to do it. But Gittins to come back from injury, right? So if the right money comes in, do you let Palmer go, or are you keeping him at all costs?
What's the right money? Ye- I mean, I know you can't put a value to
No,
that. Look,
so you decide
no,
that.
no, that's what. I don't know, man. I don't think I would sell Palmer. I think between Palmer and Enzo, I'd be like less likely to sell Palmer for the right money. Like if somebody came in and said, okay, 100 million for Palmer, 100 million for Enzo, sorry, I'm letting go of Enzo in that situation. I'm not letting go of Palmer as well, or Palmer. Like yeah, no, I don't want to Palmer go.
I mean, that's a pretty nice gun to your head situation to have because there's really no skin off your back, right? Like, I know. I
Would
I
you?
think I think I'm just about with you because I do think there are enough redeeming qualities about Enzo to make it a very tough decision. But it's just the fact that he spoke out. My issue with Palmer is that when he's on form, his kind of apathy, that kind of cool nature of his, it plays so well, right? And it looks great, and it makes the Chelsea fans feel like, oh shit, we're untouchable, like ice in the veins. But when he's like that and he's shit, it's like when the Arsenal fans used to go after Mesut Ozil for not running about the pitch enough, right? Suddenly you're like complaining about, oh, he doesn't defend as well. Palmer actually works hard. Like honestly, like I've watched every game. I'm never like unimpressed with his work ethic, especially defensively. But you could tell he was carrying some fatigue and injury throughout the season. You could tell. So that's my thing. I think when people kind of see him have his attitude or lack of attitude towards the game, and he's not good, it manifests in man, he's lazy. You know, because the Chelsea fans, what we want to see right now is people being emotional, people being held accountable, right? And his attitude is the kind of almost the direct opposite of that, right? So this is all to say that, yeah, I think I'm just about with you on that hypothetical gun to your head scenario. I definitely offload Enzo for 100M as opposed to Palmer. In my world, we get to keep both. I think, like you said earlier, it's looking less likely that Enzo stays, but I think we're clearly lacking at the number 6 role. And we're just clearly lacking in terms of height and that physical stature in the midfield. I think between Caicedo, Santos, and Reece James, right, who we haven't mentioned can fill in here, there is enough, there are enough bodies in the midfield, right, the deeper midfield. And worst case scenario, you can play a back three and let Enzo play there in defensive midfield, right? Like if we're really not even scraping the barrel, he'd still be a pretty good deeper midfielder. We just have to know we just profile correctly, which I keep forgetting to say this. We profile players wrongly so much. I hope I spoke proper English there, but the
No,
profiling,
I was about to say that because yeah, I was about to say that because you're talking about Reese possibly playing in the mid, and I think I also said this, but realistically, right, playing him in midfield is that misprofiling happening, right? Like when you have a fit Reese James and you have a Gusto who's playing really badly, why are you playing Gusto on the right and Reese in mid when you should just be playing Reese in the mid? I mean, sorry, at the right, and having a proper midfielder playing.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree with playing Reece James on the right flank anymore, man. I think in terms of his positions where he can play and what gets the best out of him now and what preserves his body, right center back is like the first choice role for me. And then it's probably in defensive midfield. And like maybe I'm talking too far ahead because I don't know how Alonso is going to set us up. But in the research I've done, his sixes are not like his defensive midfielders are not that relied upon going forward. They're meant to just sit there. And I think that is suited to him, let's say as a secondary role. I think if Gusto gets injured and your backup option is Reece James to do flying wingback, we're gonna have the same problems we had 2 or 3 seasons ago when they were both constantly injured.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I
Yeah.
mean,
So that's that anyway. That's why I say okay, Caicedo and Santos, and then maybe one more if we have the budget for it, but it maybe has to be one of Asugo or Lavia, right? And then you're looking at, okay, if those 3 players are not fit or need to be rested, then you go to Reece James, then you go to Enzo, right? Because Enzo can play. He's played there for Argentina, winning a World Cup. You're telling me he can't do that for a game or two? That's ridiculous. He can play 6, 8, 10. That's what I like about Enzo. He's got the match intelligence, the positional awareness to play in all 3 positions. We just have to complement him with the right players around it. I think at number 8, we probably have the most players because I can see Caicedo, Santos, and Enzo playing there. Probably Lavia, and even maybe Asugo. And at 10, I think we have enough depth with Enzo definitely. I think especially in under gegenpress. Palma at 10, Esteval, who also is supposed to be like a same Palma right winger /10. And then we can't forget that, look, again, if your top 3 options are missing from the number 10 role, you have João Pedro, who can actually play number 10 and he connects play very well. He can carry the ball very well. He plays off of a striker very well. So I'm not sure how much we actually need to do in the midfield. I would say definitely go out and get a first choice goalkeeper, and definitely go out and get a starting quality center back. I would put getting a number 6 like defensive midfielder further down the list. I guess find out what we say in the attacking side of things to see maybe if some of those options need to be fleshed out in the market before we get a 6.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say the same thing. I think we'll come to attack as well, obviously on the next one. But I feel like a midfield thing happens in only in the event of Enzo leaving. I think that's when they'll have the budget as well to probably do it. I don't know, like there's been a lot of briefings coming out, of course, and I don't want to get into all of it. We'll definitely look at
But I mean the main chat has been around, if Enzo goes, how do you replace his goal contribution? So are there any names out there that can do this?
in midfield. I've not really seen Jared Bowen was talked about. He plays like he's been sort of playing that creative playmaker for West Ham. But I think the talk has been more around forwards as well. There's been obviously a lot of uncertainty, and other teams are making moves, man. The sort of quick moves that I was expecting from us aren't exactly happening just yet. But
Well, I mean, no Europe and no money will do that to you, mate.
yeah, maybe. I also hope that maybe there's stuff happening, that is not coming out so much. The briefings have been very, very pointed right now. So, um, yeah, let's just see how it goes. Obviously, like you said, attacks coming up next. We're gonna look at the forwards. And then I presume you want to do a deep dive into Alonso's setup as well and what the team could
Yeah.
look like.
But I mean, that'll probably wait till closer to the season. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop with this ownership, with this kind of upper senior management. That I'm sure there was a get out of jail free card from Alonso's side. So let 1st of July hit. Let him hold the jersey, sign the contract. Then we can start, talking about how we're gonna play, man. Because the longer kind of we're out of that season that just finished, the more I'm like, how on earth did we secure Alonso? I mean, it's wild to think about it. I do already have some thoughts on how we might set up, and how I would kind of approach things, using his basic philosophies. But yeah, I think, just to summarize, I think we can't ask for stability, but then, you know, throw everything out the moment something gets rotten, right? So I understand, like, if I'm saying let's bring in first choice goalkeeper, that's already a pretty big change. I'm saying we offload 4 center backs and just bring in one. That's a whole load of change. I think in this midfield area might have to just take the hit and keep some stability. Hopefully, keep the leadership. Hopefully, these players in midfield keep growing. Um, whilst there's a lot of change around them.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I say that I think moves only happen like we see a new midfielder in event of like an Enzo leaving. So I think we'll leave it at that. So we've covered, obviously, we'll recap what our team looks like at the end of this. So stay tuned for the next one. Attack will be dropping soon, and make sure you're following us to get notified. Subscribe on Spotify or YouTube, wherever you listen to this. Leave us a review, share this with other Chelsea fans, and follow us on X at We Burn Blue. And yeah, we do have some preseason news dropping as well soon. So we'll keep you guys posted about that. Any last words, Sharon?
It's weird, but I'm feeling just a glimmer of optimism. So I'm just gonna go and sit in the dark for a bit and make sure I knock that feeling out of me.
All right, you do that.
All right.
On the next one.